Welcome back, sixth graders. We're going to continue with today's reading. We're at the bottom of page 166.
Monday, 6 March 1944. Dear Kitty, I can tell by Peter's face that he thinks just as much as I do. And when Mrs. Von Don yesterday evening said scoffingly, "the thinker," I was irritated. Peter flushed and looked very embarrassed, and I was about to explode. Why can't these people keep their mouths shut? You can't imagine how horrible it is to stand by and see how lonely he is, and yet not be able to do anything. I can so well imagine, just as if I were in his place, how desperate he must feel sometimes in quarrels and in love. Poor Peter. He needs love very much.
I wanted to see if you guys caught why Peter was so upset and why Anne was so upset. Mrs. Von Don calls him the thinker scoffingly. So in the comments below, go ahead and put what you think, why he's so insulted or bothered by that comment, and then we'll talk about it tomorrow.
When he said he didn't need any friends, how harsh the words sounded to my ears. Oh, how mistaken he is. I don't believe he meant it a bit. He clings to his solitude, to his affected indifference and his grown-up ways, but it's just an act, so as never, never to show his real feelings. Poor Peter. How long will he be able to go on playing this role? Surely a terrible outburst must follow as the result of this superhuman effort. Oh, Peter, if only I could help you. If only you would let me. Together we could drive away your loneliness and mine. I think a lot, but I don't say much. I am happy if I see him, and if the sun shines when I'm with him. I was very excited yesterday. While I was washing my hair, I knew that he was sitting in the room next to ours. I couldn't do anything about. The more quiet and serious I feel inside, the more noisy I become outwardly. Who will be the first to discover and break through this armor? I'm glad, after all, that the Von Dons have a son and not a daughter. My conquest could never have been so difficult, so beautiful, so good, if I had not happened to hit on someone of the opposite sex. Yours, Anna. P.S. You know that I'm always honest with you, so I must tell you that I actually live from one meeting to the next. I keep hoping to discover that he, too, is waiting for me all the time, and I'm thrilled if I notice a small, shy advance from his side. I believe he'd like to say a lot, just like I would. Little does he know that it's just his clumsiness that attracts me. Yours, Anna.
I wanted to check with you guys and to see if any of you are surprised that she does have a crush on Peter. I would love to hear it in the comments. I definitely want to hear it in the comments, actually, if it's a surprise to you, or did you guys expect it to happen? I was surprised at first because she actually seemed to be annoyed with him. He definitely didn't seem to be as interested in academics as she was, but I'm curious to see what you guys think. Were you surprised? Are you surprised at how much she likes him? So go ahead and leave that in the comments below. This next entry is a little bit long, but it's very important to the theme of the story. It's very important to Anna. We're not talking about Peter in this entry, so I want you guys to, after we read it together, I want you guys to go back and reread it carefully, slowly, write down anything that sticks out to you. We're gonna have a journal entry on this section when we come back from spring break. So please just read it again, reflect on it. Maybe you can reflect on it and see if anything matches what you're going through right now. All right, so let's continue. Tuesday, 7 March, 1944.
Tuesday, 7 March 1944. Dear Kitty, if I think now of my life in 1942, it all seems so unreal. It was quite a different Anna who enjoyed that heavenly existence from the Anna who has grown wise within these walls. Yes, it was a heavenly life. Boyfriends at every turn, about 20 friends and acquaintances of my own age, the darling of nearly all the teachers, spoiled from top to toe by Mommy and Daddy, lots of sweets, enough pocket money. What more could you want?
So this definitely describes that first journal entry that we read in the very beginning of the book, where it's her birthday and she has her birthday party with friends and she gets presents, people coming to visit all day. And then the next entry where she tells us about the boys that look at her in class and everybody wants her attention. So she's going to compare her life to what it was like before she went in hiding. And her life seemed pretty exciting. She seemed pretty popular, as she'll go to explain. So it's one of the reasons why the going into hiding is really hard for her, because she was very popular. We know she was very social. And so it's hard to be so isolated.
You will certainly wonder by what means I got around all these people. Pater's word, attractiveness, is not altogether true. All the teachers were entertained by my cute answers, my amusing remarks, my smiling face, and my questioning looks. That is all I was. A terrible flirt, coquettish and amusing. I had one or two advantages which kept me rather in favor. I was industrious, honest, and frank. I would never have dreamed of cribbing from anyone else. I shared my sweets generously, and I wasn't conceited. Wouldn't I have become rather forward with so much admiration? It was a good thing that in the midst of it, at the height of all this gaiety, I suddenly had to face reality. And it took me at least a year to get used to the fact that there was no more admiration forthcoming.
So I did underline the word acquaintances here. That was an old vocab word that we had earlier this year about somebody you know but not really well, maybe a friend of a friend. I also underlined 2 over here that might be good for later. Solitude and indifference. Those are on page 167 if you ever want to go back for the next vocab page. But here, we've had this word a lot and I've kind of stayed away from it, but I wanted to point it out. Coquettish. She uses this word several times to describe Mrs. Von Don. And that's when you're flirting, but you're flirting more with a purpose, definitely to get attention from the opposite sex, as she puts in the other page. And so that's kind of what Mrs. Von Don was doing when she was trying to get Mr. Frank's attention and Mr. Dussel's attention. And Anne calls herself that as well, because she was a terrible flirt, although that kind of makes me laugh as a grown-up thinking, because she was only 12 years old at the time. All right, let's continue.
How did I appear at school? The one who thought of new jokes and pranks, always king of the castle, never in a bad mood, never a crybaby. No wonder everyone liked to cycle with me. And I got other attentions.
I forgot to mention that, again, like I had said, being in hiding is so hard because she was used to attention. She maybe even thrived on it. And she's realizing, and it took her a while to understand that no more admiration was forthcoming. There wasn't any more of that attention coming to her. In fact, she only got negative attention in the annex. So I think that was doubly hard for her.
Now I look back at that Anna as an amusing but very superficial girl who has nothing to do with the Anna of today. Pater said quite rightly about me, if ever I saw you, you were always surrounded by 2 or more boys and a whole troop of girls. You were always laughing and always the center of everything. What is left of this girl? Oh, don't worry. I haven't forgotten how to laugh or to answer back readily. I'm just as good, if not better, at criticizing people, and I can still flirt if I wish. That's not it, though. I'd like that sort of life again for an evening, a few days, or even a week. The life which seemed so carefree and gay. But at the end of that week, I should be dead beat, and would be only too thankful to listen to anyone who began to talk about something sensible. I don't want followers, but friends. Admirers who fall not for a flattering smile, but for what one does and for one's character.
So this is going to be one of the questions one of the answers to the questions that we do on the green packet for Friday's assignment, the last day of the student plan that we sent home. So you can mark that or put a star by that. So I'll come back to that one. So I think that's funny. I can still flirt if I wish. she wouldn't mind going back to that lifestyle, but I think she realizes kind of how empty that was, or how fleeting, or how, I don't want to say meaningless, because youth, it's fun to be that way. It's just part of growing up. But she realizes that she wants more than that. She wants to be able to listen to other people. She doesn't want followers, and I like that word because that's a word that we use today in social media. She just doesn't want strangers or people to like her just because she's pretty or just because she's funny. Just like followers on Instagram or on Facebook. She doesn't want that kind of attention. She wants friends, people who don't just like her for her flattering smile, but one that likes her character. And I think that also shows a sign of maturity, like in our plot lesson yesterday. She's growing up. Even the relationships that aren't physically present, her friends and kids at school, she wants more than what she had before.
I know quite well that the circle around me would be much smaller, but what does that matter, as long as one still keeps a few sincere friends? Yet I wasn't entirely happy in 1942, in spite of everything. I often felt deserted, but because I was on the go the whole day long, I didn't think about it, and enjoyed myself as much as I could. Consciously and unconsciously, I tried to drive away the emptiness I felt with jokes and pranks. Now I think seriously about life, and what I have to do. One period of my life is over forever. The carefree school days are gone, never to return.
She did talk about that when she told us, or told Kitty, that she needed someone to confide into. She didn't have a really close friend. She had friends to joke with, boys to flirt with, but she didn't really have a close friend. And even though she's writing this just for herself and not necessarily to be published, she's not writing fiction, this goes back to what we read in the beginning. So it stays true to the theme and to the main conflict. So even though this was exciting, it's fun, she really wasn't happy, and we knew that even in the beginning, and she's reflecting on that. But I want you guys to focus on this. You're going to go into junior high and high school, and it's going to seem like you need to have a lot of friends, or if you don't have a lot of friends and something's wrong with you, that's definitely not the way it is. I would suggest that you do circle yourself with a smaller group. People that love the Lord, people that are walking with the Lord and will sharpen you into a better Christian, and not just the most friends. So, I mean, I agree with what she's saying. Some people you can confide into and trust and pray with.
I don't even long for them anymore. I have outgrown them. I can't just only enjoy myself, as my serious side is always there. I look upon my life up till the new year, as it were, through a powerful magnifying glass. The sunny life at home, then coming here in 1942, the sudden change, the quarrels, the bickerings. I couldn't understand it. I was taken by surprise, and the only way I could keep up some bearing was by being impertinent. The first half of 1943, my fits of crying, the loneliness, how I slowly began to see all my faults and shortcomings, which are so great, and which seemed much greater then. During the day, I deliberately talked about anything and everything that was farthest from my thoughts, tried to draw Pym to me, but couldn't. Alone, I had to face the difficult task of changing myself, to stop the everlasting reproaches, which were so oppressive, and which reduced me to such terrible despondency.
So again, she's realizing that being in hiding did take her by surprise. She didn't have that attention, the positive attention that she was getting. Like I said earlier, it was kind of the opposite. And she kind of didn't know who she was. And so to get her bearings, as she said, was just by being impertinent, by being talkative, by being outspoken, which of course got her reprimands from everybody in the house. And so she would talk about anything and try and drop him to her. And remember, that's her dad. I underlined impertinent. That would be a good vocab word. Despondency, that feeling alone and feeling isolated.
Things improved slightly in the second half of the year. I became a young woman, and was treated more like a grown-up. I started to think and write stories, and came to the conclusion that the others no longer had the right to throw me about like an India rubber ball. I wanted to change in accordance with my own desires. But one thing that struck me even more was when I realized that even Daddy would never become my confidant over everything. I didn't want to trust anyone but myself anymore. At the beginning of the new year, the second great change, my dream. And with it, I discovered my longing not for a girlfriend, but for a boyfriend. I also discovered my inward happiness and my defensive armor of superficiality and gaiety. In due time, I quieted down and discovered my boundless desire for all that is beautiful and good. And in the evening, when I lie in bed and end my prayers with the words, "I thank you, God, for all that is good and clear and beautiful," I am filled with joy. Then I think about the good of going into hiding, of my health, and with my whole being, of the dearness of Pater, of that which is still embryonic and impressionable, and which we neither of us dare to name or touch, of that which will come sometime.